Hello, hello, hello. You're listening to Midnight Movie Gang. It's currently 7:16 p.m. Night Movie Gang. My name is Elsie Hines. I'm the host, and I'm here with my friend Deep T.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, and for those of you just tuning in, if this is your first episode, Midnight Movie Gang is a show where we primarily talk about kind of cult classics and like lesser known films, genre cinema, horror, sci-fi. I definitely put all the movies we're talking about today in the horror genre. Um, I rewatched the older movies we're going to be talking about today. Just today, I hadn't seen. I had not seen either Silence of the Lambs nor Seven since high school, and man, I did not have the emotional intelligence to really understand either, like to really capture either movie. In my opinions about them shifted so much. Deep, still there?
Really? Oh yeah. I'm very intrigued to see what you mean by that, because I mean, hopefully you'll come towards my side of the argument, which is the correct side, obviously.
Yeah, I don't even. I don't know what your side is on any of these movies for the most part, really. But yeah, so for people listening, we're primarily going to be talking about Longlegs, which is a new horror film that came out recently. Longlegs is a 2024 American horror thriller film written and directed by Osgood Perkins. And this movie that came out recently, a lot of people are drawing comparisons. I mean, rightfully so, to Silence of the Lambs, which is a 1991 psychological horror film that kind of has a similar premise. As far, I mean, like Longlegs is almost a remake, really, when you think about it.
It's like I can see a lot of the parallels. I feel like, hmm, I feel
Remake
like
might be strong,
yeah,
especially like it's kind of like we'll get into the spoilers of it in a bit, but like there's like one key element that's kind of missing in long. Well, there's a lot of key element. I'm gonna put this off
there's
the bat right now. I was not a huge fan of Longlegs.
there's a lot of structural integrity missing to Longlegs. I think I liked it more than you, but
Yeah,
there are flaws to it.
yeah. I gave it 2.5 stars on Letterboxd, so that's definitely. It got. I think part of it is that it got very overhyped for me.
Mm.
As far as like and the marketing of this movie is definitely something to talk about. As far as like yeah, I feel like the viral marketing of it really was selling it well as like it's the most scary movie of all time of the decade. You know, like
I mean, cause like I do want to know, like, did it manage to scare you? Cause like my positive feelings for the movie mostly come from the fact that, like, yeah, I was able to get a good scare out of me, especially in the first half.
yeah, honestly, up until we actually meet Nicolas Cage's character, spoiler alert for folks, up until we meet Longlegs, um, and we actually see the character and like see him do his thing, I definitely enjoyed the atmosphere of the film. Um, I thought it had a really strong opening. Like I thought it introduced us to like the the like texture we're supposed to be feeling as far as like just like a little kid going to like meet a strange man by herself, like just in the middle of nowhere. Automatically you're gonna get some fear, and I feel like not seeing Nick Cage's face in that opening too um also added to like also helped. How do I put it? it it
Yeah,
helped me.
it heightens the suspense of it. It's like the shark in Jaws. You don't see the shark. That makes it
Exactly.
scarier.
I would have fucking. It would have been lit if they just never showed Nicolas Cage's face throughout this whole movie, but that'd be its own thing. But
They
anyway,
should never show his face, but they should still have that bit of marketing that was like, here's what our actress's heart rate was like when she saw Nicolas Cage in the makeup
yes,
for the first time, and then we just never see the makeup.
exactly. Yeah, no, that part of our marketing too would definitely was like, oh, that's fucking cool. You see it. But no, sorry. Before we break down, get into Longlegs in particular, I do just want to talk about briefly. What's your history with the movie Silence of the Lambs? Like, what are your kind of general thoughts about it? It might be tough to just get general thoughts, but when did you first see it, and what did it immediately come to your mind when you watched Longlegs? Like, was it something you immediately thought about as a comparison?
So I actually, Silence of the Lambs has been a huge blind spot for me for a while. I didn't get around to it until like the day I saw Longlegs. I was like, oh yeah, people are comparing it a lot to this movie that I still haven't seen for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I do love Manhunter, which I think, if I recall correctly, was based off the same novel. Came out in the 80s. I've seen that movie like 3 times. Fucking love it. It rules.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Brian
never
Co-
got around to Silence of the Lambs for some reason.
Brian Cox is Hannibal Lecter. That's cool.
Yeah. Much smaller role, but you know, he fills the screen pretty well. I don't know if he's as good as Hopkins. Maybe he just doesn't get as much time as Hopkins.
I haven't seen the '80s Manhunter film, so
It
I'm
rules.
not
It's
sure.
like a lot. It's more pulpy than I think Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs works better as sort of a horror thriller, and Manhunter is more just like a. I don't want to say cheesy because I find it. I think it's a very entertaining film, but like you're not getting scares out of it.
Gotcha. It's kind of more of like Michael Mann, so it's like more of like a crime thriller, I
Yeah,
imagine,
yeah.
is how it feels. Yeah, that makes sense. As far as I definitely want to get into the watch like the other adaptations of this character, and especially the other movies with Anthony Hopkins, because as far as the only Hannibal Lecter thing I have seen is Silence of the Lambs. Like I haven't seen Red Dragon. I haven't seen Ridley Scott's Hannibal, which I didn't even know up
Oh,
until
that's
this
it.
week. That yeah, like the 2001 movie Hannibal, which is a direct sequel to Silence of the Lambs, is directed by Ridley Scott, and just based on that alone, I want to check it out because I've definitely gained a lot of appreciation for Ridley Scott in the last few years. But yeah, no, definitely want to check that out. So yeah, you didn't see it till recently. Did you see it before you saw Longlegs?
No, I saw it. Yeah, right after. I was like, I think that evening, I was like, oh yeah, Silence of the Lambs. I'll watch that.
Okay, that's an interesting order to do it in. Yeah, tell me about that viewing experience. How'd you feel about it? And I'm sure you're still processing, thinking about how you feel about the movie now. But like, how did you, what were your initial thoughts?
I mean, I really enjoyed it. You know, like it's one of those things where like you hear people like reference it so much, like the scene
Mm-hmm.
where she walks in and you see Hannibal Lecter like for the first time. I was thinking of that like edit of him where like it's the shot of his room and him standing there, but it's covered in like anime posters or something. Like I was
Yeah.
thinking about all this stuff that like is like parodying and
Oh.
referencing it, but
Oh.
like
Yeah.
yeah, but like even like despite that, it's such a really strong movie in its direction that I think it manages to overcome that, which is rare because I feel like half the time I'm usually swayed by what I'm coming in with. So
Yeah.
very strongly directed film. Mixed feelings on the transphobic
Yeah.
portrayal of the villain, even though they kind of try to step around that, but it kind of doesn't really work that they try to step around it.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of elements of that that certainly don't age well, especially like with a lot of the medical terms that they like are throwing around in there that just aren't accurate.
Yeah, it feels worse too because it's like so much of the movies like gendered commentary. Like here's her experience as a woman. I like that motif of like
Mm-hmm.
everyone making eye talk contact with the camera. I think it's like a very strong narrative about the female perspective, but then you also have this villain that's supposed to be like this very trans misogynistic portrayal of a
Mm-hmm.
trans woman, and
Exactly.
it's like and then it kind of sours the whole thing and by
Yeah,
extension.
yeah, like all the people trying to get the bathroom bills to go in that think that like they imagine Buffalo Bill when they imagine like trans women going to the bathroom.
That's literally it, and it kind of sucks too because it's like they have that like throwaway line that's like Clarice Starling is like talking to Hannibal about like what the profile of the killer would be, and she's like,
Mm-hmm.
but transgender people aren't usually serial killers, and
Mm-hmm.
Hannibal's like, that's right, this one's different. But
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like a lot of people that are watching this movie are gonna like look at this and be like, a I'm doing air quotes, a man acting like a woman. That's scary. And like it does so much like it tries to get a lot of scares out of this quote unquote man acting like a woman, and it's like I think you're just kind of playing into the same fears that
Oh,
any
100.
audience would have.
Ultimately, what we're seeing in the movie is like what is the white man afraid of, right?
Right.
Like the white man is afraid of like the gay people coming to take our women and children. You know what I mean? Like that's I feel like at the end of the day, that's at the core of like a lot of these kind of killer movies, and where a lot of the really like harmful stereotypes and representation of like characters that honestly just need therapy, and you kind of look at now like a lot of modern horror movies now, or sorry, not even horror, but like there's kind of this emphasis in media now with villains where like the villains are kind of the main characters. Like you look at Joker, Homelander on The Boys, and like there's a lot of this kind of villain focused content because a lot of the people who are in charge of kind of making these stories, making TV shows and movies now, show that like, yeah, these quote unquote villainous characters that like these kind of people that, you know, like historically filmmakers and like the white guys at Hollywood, quote unquote,
Like they're like the heroes, right? Like the
exactly,
stereotypic image. Yeah.
exactly, and no, like now, yeah, exactly. Now it's like, I don't know, the perception has just changed in what the audiences are like interested in as far as like characters they can relate to. Like I feel like if you made Silence of the Lambs now, you would have to, or not would have to, but like it would be something like, what about from Buffalo Bill's perspective, you know, or it would be like a more, I could see like A24 as Silence of the Lambs being like a from Buffalo Bill or from Hannibal perspective or something.
Yeah, it would at least be more, I guess, nuanced about where it gets its horror from.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, after rewatching this movie today, I need to, like, and hearing what I heard in the You're Wrong About podcast, I think I need to think a lot more about the kind of like about the trans representation in this movie. It definitely is offensive, but it's something that like, yeah, I don't know, I need to sit with more. Also, it's a part of it is like, you know, saying to the audience out there, like I'm kind of going on my own gender journey at the moment right now, and like it's also just a lot of thoughts jumbled around in my head. Let's talk just a little bit about yeah. So you enjoyed the movie. It was offensive. You enjoyed Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, that's all. That's all. If I had to say it in two sentences, yeah.
Yeah. You enjoyed Anthony Hopkins' performance. I also
Oh,
thought
loved Anthony. Oh,
I
what a scamp he was.
I also thought he was great, and I remember what I was trying to get at. I forgot how much of like a very kind of, this movie is kind of very pulp horror in a lot of scenes.
Mm.
As far as like when they go to the mental hospital that Hannibal's held in, like as they go down the stairs, there's this like ominous red light, and there's just like four different sets of guards and like and gates and shit that Clarice has to go through before she can get down to Hannibal, and you know, it's just like it's like going down into hell. And then I love the detail of like of how he was looking right at her as she was walking around to his cell, just in that like the feeling that like he already saw her before she even came around the corner, you know?
Yeah.
Just
I like, because like what you're saying about the sort of pulp background of it is. Sorry, I should let you finish your point actually.
No, that was my point.
What you were saying about like the pulp background of it is like, because like when you look at the story on paper, it's this very like pulpy like crime thriller, like, oh, she has to stop this guy before he kills again. But like watching the movie, it very much leans into like an atmosphere of like, you know, horror and like scaring the audience. And I think like part of the reason I like Silence of the Lambs and I still don't like Seven is that Seven, I think, leans more into being a crime thriller.
Mm-hmm.
And like the fact that it kind of therefore portrays itself as more grounded in that sense, because like Silence of the Lambs being a horror movie is like, I mean, the intensity might be comparable, but it's also like there's sort of that unspoken level of like, oh, this is like a heightened version of real life. And then like Seven positioning itself as a crime thriller is like, oh no, this is like a gritty, like down to earth, like noirish thing. And that makes me kind of take it less seriously, because it's like, well, Silence of the Lambs knows it's I guess a cartoon of itself.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, Hannibal Lecter is still like a mystical slasher villain. In the sense of like, even just how they talk about him, how like I feel like a lot of what people love about and this is also talking from personal experience, as far as like I've been watching all the Friday the 13th movies. Like I hadn't seen them before, and like I got a box set and I've just been going through them. Just the kind of blanket statement of like these guys, they're pure evil. They have no souls. They're just from hell. I feel like a lot of that mentality they bring to the Hannibal character. Like it doesn't feel like this guy is a real person whatsoever. Like they don't do anything to make you feel like this person is real. Like even down to like I love the scene where they bring him to talk to the senator lady, who her daughters who Buffalo Bill kidnapped, and you know, he says these awful things, just like, take this thing back to, you know, so and so, and it's like just that how they talk about the character even just like makes it heightened, you know?
Yeah, he's like fucking Doctor Doom, like.
Exactly. And I feel like when you really delve into like any real life serial killers, like you look into Jeffrey Dahmer or Ed Gein or like any of those, like there are a lot of human stories like within these. Like you can hear all about them on the You're Wrong About, but like they're human beings that are portraying human behavior, and you can see how they got to that point. Whereas like with these movie killers, it's like no, their souls are from hell.
Yeah, like the hyper intelligent serial killer is like in stories it's like a fun idea, like ooh, like it's a game of wits, it's a cat and mouse thing. And then you look at serial killers in real life and like it's like, police incompetence that they didn't get caught, and like
Exactly.
interviews with the men themselves are like they're clearly disturbed and like not intelligent people. Like
Hmm.
there's no like charisma or like quiet intelligence about them, and like
Yeah. It
yeah.
really is just the cops being dumb. It's also a factor of like, what is it? The fact that most real life serial killers are, just like, regular very normal looking white dudes is another thing. As far as like, yeah, law enforcement is going to ignore those guys the most. You know, so like that's
I
another.
remember I remember reading the oh my god, 'cause I can't even remember his name. The fucking guy, what Ted Bundy. I
Yeah,
remember reading The
Zac
Stranger
Efron.
Beside Me in high school. Zac Efron. I remember reading The Stranger Beside Me in high school, and it was like I think a point they made was that like the media image of him was like, oh, he's like this sexy cute guy, and like he all the ladies were falling for him, and it's like
Hmm.
it's not that he was like so charismatic that he never got caught. It was that he was just like such an average white guy that like
Hmm.
no one, it was easy for him to just like blend in, and like he
Exactly.
had one of those faces where if he grew facial hair you couldn't recognize him. Like he was just a generic guy, he was just some guy. But
100%. All of them are.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny how like in all of these movies, like the serial killers are people that you're not gonna fucking forget.
Yeah.
Especially Nick Cage as Longlegs. Like I was thinking that part of that the whole fucking time I was watching Longlegs is like you're not gonna. This guy couldn't be a serial killer
Nah, that
because
guy's a normal guy. I see guys like that walking down the street all the time.
I don't know, bro. Yeah. Speaking of Longlegs, let's actually start breaking into Longlegs, and we can bring in the Silence of the Lambs 7 comparisons as we're kind of going through the plot of Longlegs. So yeah, basically Longlegs. We talked about the opening a little bit. It opens up in the 70s. I forget that. I forget if the movie tells us that it's the 70s right off the bat. And we kind of focus in on like a view from a Polaroid camera. And yeah, there's like a little girl in a house, and she sees a weird looking dude out in the yard. It's snowing. It's very aesthetic, and she goes out to meet him. And yeah, what did you think of the opening?
Oh, it's a great opening. I thought it was like really promising. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, the atmosphere is great. Like, Nicolas Cage like is putting on a voice that is definitely him, but it's like,
Hmm.
pretty scary, at least at that
Yeah,
point.
it's like disturbing, especially at that point. The voice to me was scary just because I didn't know what was going on. Like it was
Mm.
just a lack of exposure kind of deal.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I don't know if this is jumping ahead, but like I feel like the more acutely aware I become that it's Nicolas Cage, and like the more the movie shows us long legs, and like we become acutely aware of what his face looks like, the more it kind of the illusion kind of goes away. Like, oh,
One
that's
hundred
Nicolas
percent.
Cage. I'm not scared of him, you know?
Yeah, he's just doing his woo thing, like it's not. Um, yeah, no, that was definitely probably the most obvious weak element of this movie for me is the fact that like he's not even doing a different kind of character. Like he is just doing the same crazy Nick Cage thing that he does in all of those movies.
Yeah,
Um,
and like to be fair, I love crazy Nick Cage, but it's just coming in with the context doesn't really help.
yeah, like this movie, they're trying to like portray this character and like this character interacting with people as being something that is like seriously disturbing, like something that we're like the audience, the filmmaker does not want us to laugh at Nicolas Cage doing his Nicolas Cage thing, but
I disagree. I think he wants at least a couple laughs out of us in the film. Like you have that scene where he's going to the the supply store, and that
mhm,
teenager's just at the counter,
yeah, and he like puts his hands over his eyes and shit.
and
Um,
she's just like, whatever, man. Like,
that weird guy is here again. and then he yells in the car on the drive home.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, yeah, I just laughed at that scene, and everyone in my theater laughed too. Was the
It's
thing.
funny.
Like, yeah, but I definitely I don't know. The rest of this movie is just so goddamn serious. Like, there's no like it when we started getting more scenes with Longlegs, it really felt like it was a different movie. You know,
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, I like in terms of like getting laughs, it's like cuz I do like when a horror movie kind of leans into comedy every once in a while. I saw someone like I think they wrote a review for I want to say The Evil Dead and they were like the kind of emotional reaction you get out of horror and the emotional reaction you get out of like a good punchline is kind of the same.
Hmm.
So like a horror movie leaning into that can be good, but here I think it just kind of confuses the tone.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot too. I think I would say Key and Peele. Jordan Peele has talked about that a lot, kind of with his movie, where it's like, yeah, it is kind of the same type of build-up gets you a good scare as like comedy gets you a good laugh.
Yeah.
As far as like it is just all about like setting up and then defying expectations. Um, there's also just something to be said about kind of the atmosphere and like how a movie is kind of telling its story. Like you look at I feel like you could have a version of this movie that is like a bit dumber and a bit more like cheesy kind of thing because throughout this movie I kind of got another inspiration that I definitely felt in it was like a lot of Stephen King energy.
Mm. I
Like
haven't read any Stephen King, so
well
you'll
just
have to elaborate. Yeah.
just as far as like the psychic stuff with Lee like Stephen a lot of Stephen King stories involve like random person gets super like Carrie, like a random person has superpowers, and it's not really explained like where they come from. That's just how it is. Or like The Shining,
Like it's
same.
maybe trauma, but like we're not gonna get too into it. Like
Yeah, exactly. Like it's this kind of like vague like thing of like yeah like how much trauma you have and like how much pain that you've gone through like gives you weird horror based psychic powers, you know, and I feel like it's a very Stephen King thing and it's I see a lot of inspiration in there from that, but it kind of breaks the mold. We'll get to it when we get further in the plot, but basically the next thing that happens in the plot is we meet Lee Harker, played by Micah Monroe. I think it's Micah Monroe.
yeah.
And have you seen It Follows or anything else with her?
I did see It Follows many, many years ago in my youth.
Mm-hmm. Did you like It Follows?
I did like It Follows. I hope I would still like it. I remember it being a pretty strong movie, but
It's like one of my favorite kind of modern era horror films, really. Um, I really enjoy that movie. I know a lot of people who didn't, though. She was also in another pretty fun, I wouldn't call it a horror movie, it's kind of like a suspenseful action movie called The Guest, with Dan Stevens, and she was also really good in that. But I hadn't seen her in anything in a while, and when I saw that she was in the movie, I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, we meet her. She's an FBI agent. She's weird. She's just like kind of standoffish, and like she doesn't talk a lot. She's kind of out there. Like all the other FBI agents try to talk to like she's neurodivergent, basically.
yeah, I really like her energy. Like she's just like a protagonist I really enjoy. Like
Yeah, no, I thought she was really good. We meet her. Yeah, and I forget exactly how they figure it out, but they find out that she's kind of psychic.
yeah, they like I mean okay, because they have her like I don't know. Okay, so the movie opens with her like doing like I don't know. She's going through the houses trying to find some guy. She's
Trying
psychically
to find a
drawn
different
to
killer.
yeah,
Yeah.
and she's like psychically drawn to the house he's in. And then
Hmm.
right after that they have the scene where she does the I guess the psychic test at the FBI.
Yeah, I just kept thinking about the psychic test in Starship Troopers, with the cards.
Just
But
like
yeah,
abruptly transitions into a Paul Verhoeven movie.
yeah, but yeah, they do the psychic test in the scary room, and then she gets paired up with. After that, she gets paired up with what's the fuck's the character's name? Agent Carter,
Her boss.
her boss. Yeah, and they basically get her on the Longlegs case. Um, and she kind of takes some time to put all the codes together, to figure out like a motive. Like they just don't have anything on Longlegs. And I forget, does she figure this out when Longlegs, like during? Does she not go back to her boss to tell her that she figured it out until after Longlegs goes into her house?
I think it's after, because that's when she has, because once Longlegs goes into her house, that's when she has like the card to reference the cipher from, and that's when she's able to solve the cipher.
Yes, exactly. Wikipedia doesn't look like it mentions it here. Um, but yeah, that scene was pretty scary as far as like, I don't know, just the base level of like someone is in the house and you don't know where they are. And uh, yeah, it's like, what do you think about what do you think about her boss and like what they got going on?
There's sort of like a, let me think of how to describe this.
Yeah. I knew as soon as they introduced his family, I was like, oh, they're all gonna die. Either this man's gonna die, his family's gonna die.
Yeah, I was talking on my other podcast about this, but like he has the energy of like someone that's in just like a regular crime thriller, and he's like, "Damn it, Harker, turn in your badge and your gun." Like he's such a normal guy,
Yeah, he
and
could have walked out of 7.
yeah, like he's so comically normal. Like I feel like the scene when you meet his family, and like you already know the movie's about like fathers that murder their families, and like it's fathers that murder their families around their daughter's birthday, and then you
Hmm.
go and you meet his family, and the daughter's birthday is coming up, and it feels like it feels like it's supposed to be comedic. Like
Hmm.
the movie is like you know exactly what's about to happen to these people. Like look at them
Hmm.
standing like they're in a family portrait. Like I feel like
Yeah.
it's a yeah
Yeah, no,
supposed to be comedic.
it's Chekhov's family with a man has
Yeah.
daughter and wife for sure. Um, yeah, no, it's very yeah, it's very laid out there. But yeah, and also around this point we get probably Wikipedia really skips around as far as like where it goes, but like we get some in here. We get some scenes with Nicolas Cage's Longlegs. Like we get the scene with him at the store. Um, I think my favorite scene of Longlegs in this movie, or the scene where like he kind of felt the most scary to me, was when he was making the doll. Um, and he has a line that has been like stuck in my head for a while, where he's like, "You're not afraid of the dark, are you? Because you are the dark." You know, he's kind of like whispering to this doll. And honestly, I feel like Nick Cage in this movie, he is most scary when his performance is kind of the most subdued. Um, for me,
Yeah.
like the scene where they finally capture him, and they, what is it? Harker is interrogating him. There's a part where like he kind of stops doing all the wild Nicolas Cage stuff, and his voice kind of gets like real low. He's like, "Are you ready for this?" kind of thing, and that's, I don't know. I was able to at least like buy that he belongs in this movie universe, you know,
Mm.
from that scene. But but yeah, overall, were you able to follow them putting everything together? Like them, like did it make sense?
Not entirely. I feel like yeah, this is like a big weak point of the movie for me is that like in the first half when it's like obviously deliberately mysterious, like you don't know what's going on, it's very ominous, like it's very scary. And then like as they try to reveal stuff, it still doesn't make sense, and then it becomes like, well, does the movie know what it's doing? And it's like you kind of lose faith in its ability to scare you. Now it's like I don't
Yeah,
think you even know what's going on here.
yeah. You know, it's a thing where it's like, I feel like they kind of set up this mystery and they set up all these clues and pieces, but they didn't really have enough tools that are supposed, or like I feel like the writers kind of wrote themselves into a wall in terms of like how to make uh I keep forgetting the character's name, Lee Mikey Monroe, our main character, like how she's gonna figure out these murders. And I kind of feel like when Longlegs broke into her apartment and left her the cipher, it felt kind of off to me in the sense that like she didn't tell her boss at all that Longlegs was in her place. And like I feel like I didn't feel that sense of like, oh fuck, is she not afraid that Longlegs is gonna come back? Like them writing in that Longlegs gives her like the secret to the cipher or whatever kind of feels to me like they were like, oh damn, how are we gonna get her to figure this fucking thing out? And they're like, oh, what if Longlegs just gives her the thing? It felt a little lazy, is what I'm trying to say.
Fucking yeah, yeah. Like I feel like a lot of what drew me to this movie was people being like, oh, it's kind of like a procedural horror, like she's
Hmm.
trying to solve the mystery, and then like I watch it and there's very little mystery solving going on. Like
Yeah.
there's a mysterious code, she solves it.
Hmm.
There's a pattern, she sees it.
Yeah.
There's not really a concrete trail to follow, just like a lot of ominous little details that pop up.
Yeah. A lot of it is that she has her superpowers kind of help her. Like it isn't even necessarily that. Like I feel like the character is smart and they show her being intelligent in the movie, but a lot of how she's able to get through this case and like able to proceed through this movie is just from her psychic powers.
Oh, I
And
think my
it felt a little
connection's
lazy.
kind
It felt a little cheap.
okay.
You know what I mean? I'm sorry. Did I cut out?
Yeah, you cut out for a second, and then you
And then
spoke. I caught up. It like did that thing where it speeds up and it
and did
catches
the
up
speed up
everything
thing.
you said. Yeah, I don't know if you
Gotcha.
can cut out my audio track there.
No, that's okay. I am able to cut out everything. The way Squadcast works is it's recording each of our audio independently, so I'll be able to. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to do a lot of edits, but it's gonna sound fine. Trust me.
Cool. Okay.
And
But
even if
if
it
you could
doesn't
say that
sound
again
fine,
because I missed it. Yeah.
even if it doesn't sound fine, we're still having fun. Um, what was I saying? Oh, I think I was just saying that Lee being able to get through, being able to solve this case doesn't feel like she necessarily relied on her wits, or like it didn't feel like she was kind of figuring it out. It more felt just like her psychic powers were just giving her all the stuff. Like it didn't feel like we were solving anything necessarily. Um, versus like if we compare it to something like Silence of the Lambs, um, like Clarice is doing the fucking detective work in that movie. Like she is going places, talking to people, and figuring it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And like that does remind me her of like having those kind of I guess psychically attuned abilities to follow the serial killer. I don't think that's inherently a bad like plot device because like Manhunter, for example, kind of does that because you've got Will Graham in there, and he's kind of like, he's the kind of psychologist that's like, I can get into the mind of the killer. I know exactly what he's thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
like, it's kind of cheesy, but it works in that movie. Like, you can make one a protagonist that gets into the mind of the killer and have that be something we can follow and like empathize with, or at least like follow from a narrative perspective. And here it
Mm-hmm.
just kind of seems like a shortcut to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, part of it too kind of feels like. So we're kind of skipping to the end of the movie here, but like we learn that the way Longlegs is killing all these people is that he's using like what's it called? It's like he's using like evil magic basically. Like he's using like demonic magic or whatever to like kill these people from afar using these dolls basically. And I thought how it was going to be was that like the reveal was going to be that Longlegs is psychic too, like Lee, you know? And that he's basically just like murdering people with his psychic powers. Which to me, I don't know. I feel like it would have fit better. Would have made the kind of connection between Longlegs and Lee kind of make more sense because it could be a thing of him being like, "You're like me," you know. Which I guess now thinking about it, you could also say that like that's kind of predictable, but I don't know. I feel like they kind of either needed to pick like, is this whole thing a cult chick? Is it a cult shit? Like, is it demonic magic or is it psychic powers? Like they feel like two very distinctly different pills I gotta swallow.
That's a very good way of putting it. They've got their like fingers in a lot of pies in terms of like imagery, like yeah,
Yeah,
Satanism and cult shit and like haunted dolls and shit. It's a lot of, you
yeah.
gotta what's the word?
I don't know. You just gotta
The
like
opposite of diversify.
you gotta pick one. It's a
Yeah.
thing where it's like there's I was watching a review. This is a weird reference here, and I mentioned this before on the podcast, but I was watching a review of the movie 65 starring Adam Driver. Did you ever see 65?
I heard of 65.
Okay, do you care about spoilers for 65?
Not really.
Okay. So basically in the movie 65, right? So the trailer portrays it as like Adam Driver is fighting dinosaurs, right? 65 million years ago. Um and you're kind of led to believe from the trailer of that movie that like, oh, he's a time traveler, right? Is I feel like where you logically go, like he traveled back in time to dinosaur times, right? But that's not what the movie is. um, so Adam Driver's character and like both of there's him and a little girl, but the human characters in the movie 65 are not from Earth. They are alien, like they are like humanoid aliens from another planet who are flying through space and happen to crash on Earth 65 million years ago, and they have their thing and then they leave, right? So basically you're having so the reason why that sucks is that, okay, to Adam Driver, the dinosaurs aren't dinosaurs, like they're just monsters, you know what I mean? Like it like because they have that whole thing of like, oh, he's just an alien from planet Gazorpa and it has nothing to do with the fact that like it's two separate things, you know what I mean?
Like, yeah, I remember hearing about this on a podcast too, that they were like, why not just make him a human guy that lands on a dinosaur planet? Like, why
Yeah,
jump through these hoops? Like,
that too.
we're
Like
not
why did
watching it because he's like secretly an alien. We're watching because there's fucking dinosaurs and he's shooting them with a gun, you know?
exactly. The dinosaurs aren't special to him in that context. Like they're just aliens. They're alien monsters to him. Like it it that's so that comparison, that kind of thing where there's like two existing things happening is is how I feel about this thing in Longlegs, where like you have occult shit and you have psychic shit, and they don't really have anything to do with each other. And it fucking bothers me. That could be me being basic, because there's plenty of movies that can have like a wide variety of different like things with like, you know, with science and math. Like look at the, you know, Marvel movies or some shit. But I don't know, it wasn't executed well for me in this movie.
Yeah, but they do a better job of organizing, right? And like, I mean, not to give Marvel too much credit, but they've got a lot of movies to set up all those different threads. This has like what, 90 minutes?
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've seen other movies like that are just contained with themselves do it better, but yeah, I don't know.
It's a matter of like making that structure, you know, readable to the audience.
Yeah.
Off,
It was
off the top of my head, I'm thinking of like, I mean, Ghost Watch is a movie that like it has its own gimmick, but it goes from like, you know, ghost hunting in a practical level to like, oh, there's a real ghost. Like I feel
mhm,
like, you know, you can organize these things in a way where like the logical leaps make sense.
yeah. Or just have them feel like they're related to one another in a way. I mean, I don't want to bring up another. I fucking will. I'll bring up another movie as an example. But did you see the movie No One Will Save You
Oh, I heard about that.
with Caitlin Dever? She's like there's it's an alien invasion movie. It's the first movie we talked about on this podcast.
Hey.
Go back to episode 1, folks. But there's a thing in that movie where like it's not just an alien invasion. Like I I don't want to spoil it for you because like I do think it's a good movie that more people should check out. But there's like an additional thing than just like an alien invasion going on. But it like is actually really well incorporated well into like why the aliens are there. And just in general, like it's two separate things that they fit into one another, and there's a reason that they're both there. And yeah, no, I feel like this movie just didn't handle that well.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
would say I would say that in terms of like I guess crossing genres like that, like I think of something like maybe The Descent, where like they're
I love
stuck
The
in a
Descent.
cave and then it's monsters.
Hmm.
Spoilers, I guess. Or like 10 Cloverfield Lane, like it's a closed
That's
room
true.
thriller movie and then spoiler happens. But it's like you get like so much you only get so much good faith from the audience that you can like throw a little curveball their way. And then like
Exactly.
if you do too many, then it's like, well now I think you just can't make a decision.
Exactly. It feels like you had a million ideas and you couldn't pick a way to go with it. Um, yeah, yeah. I want to talk real quick. I just want to focus in on Nicolas Cage's portrayal of this character Longlegs and how he looks and how he acts. And there's a specific comparison I want. It's something about this character that really disturbed me, as far as like something I found like offensive and something that really took me out of it was I found that this character had a lot of like minstrel energy, as far as like there's something offensive about this character that I was detecting that I couldn't put my finger on. And then after the movie I was thinking about it and I kind of realized what it was. So like, are you looking at I'm sharing my screen with you.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the character Old Greg?
I have not.
So Old Greg is like a character from this like British comedy show called The Mighty Boosh. And his whole thing is like he's just like a swamp creature type deal, and you can see how the character looks as far as like it's a dude in like green face, like really dark skin makeup with like these bright lips, and the way he talks like in this very kind of like, oh, Misa thinks that, you know, like kind of that way of talking, and the character is a minstrel, like it's a white dude in blackface, and like I felt a lot of Old Greg energy in Nicolas Cage's performance in this movie.
I mean, what I heard in terms of like him being offensive to people, which like it isn't necessarily a take I agree with, but I do understand where it comes from. Was like a lot of people saw him as kind of a homophobic caricature because he's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, he's got this high pitched voice, he's got these very delicate mannerisms, which like I think is kind of stretching it, but I can also see where that comes from. Like, yeah, you're kind of
Yeah.
freaked out by the fact that he's like he has this affect and he's I guess not acting like a quote unquote regular guy.
Yeah. I mean, Old Greg has that too, as well. As far as like he runs around in a skirt and he says that he has a mangina. Like if you look at
Mm.
the clips, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But like, um, yeah, I feel like usually when it comes to these kind of eccentric killer characters, there's elements of a lot of that. I definitely felt that too as well. Like I've heard people have that complaint about the Joker as a character and like any interpretation of that character. As far as like, oh, like the way he calls like Batman, like, oh, sweetie, and like a lot of these like a lot of people say that, like, you know, the way the Joker kind of flirts with Batman, like you're kind of making him feel
Yeah.
like he's like a gay male stereotype.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
joke is that he's like flirting with him to piss him off. Like,
yeah,
I see where that comes from, yeah. The
yeah, for
difference
sure.
with the Joker is that I like him because he's a silly little guy, though.
Yeah, the difference is Joker is that the Joker's cool. I'd hang out
Yeah.
with him. Yeah. Well, the Joker is also really tough because that specific character has been around for so long that it's kind of just like embedded in our culture, where like it's hard to kind of to see that. But also, some characters have more of that energy than others. Like I feel like Heath Ledger's version of that character is kind of like the least of those like kind of like stereotypical gay man qualities that you see in like other versions. Like I feel like Mark Hamill's version of the character has a lot of that. But yeah, Heath Ledger's still probably being the most popular, or maybe Joaquin. We'll see with Joker 2.
You see, a lot of those Sigma grindset images, they don't use Heath Ledger Joker anymore. They're switching to Joaquin. So, the times they are changing.
Exactly, he's taking
Yeah.
over the world.
Mia's like, because I'm a very surface level Batman fan. I've only read a couple of like the comics that everyone's read, but like for me now, like seeing what the Joker's traditional character is like, and then seeing how he's kind of shifted in pop culture as kind of just like an edgy like incel guy is like, you know
Hmm.
what? Bring back gay Joker. I miss gay Joker. Like
Yeah,
we need
make
to
the
return
Joker
to
gay
my
again.
silly little guy.
Exactly, that's what I want to. Or if you look at what is it? The what's that movie called? Or have you read the Dark Knight Returns comic?
Yeah, the Frank Miller one.
Yeah, the animated version of that, they made the two-part adaptation. I feel like the Joker, especially his voice, like there's a lot of that. I don't know. I want to rewatch those movies. But yeah, so let's get back to Longlegs real quick. So let's see what happens. Yeah, so they capture Longlegs. We're kind of skipping around because I realize like that's another thing with this movie too. I feel like it wasn't paced very well.
Yeah, I guess because I want to say I can give it more leeway because it's like a horror movie, so it's more about the vibe. But like, if you're gonna have stake so much of the movie on like the plot twist, which I feel like we're coming up on, like plot twist and like plot
Hmm.
developments, then I feel like you have to be better paced, narratively speaking.
Yeah, like for a crime procedural, I feel like just more has to happen.
Yeah.
Like even down to like I feel like we don't necessarily learn a whole lot about Mikey Monroe's character. Like I think her performance is good, but her character isn't really that interesting to me. Like I wasn't like as on board with like I didn't necessarily care about her as much as a protagonist as say Clarice in Silence of the Lambs. Um, but yeah, so they kidnap Longlegs, or they find Longlegs, um, and yeah, there's a little bit of an interrogation scene. And then he kills himself in the interrogation room. Um, and then it's revealed that uh, yeah, so it's revealed that Lee's mother has been basically helping Longlegs with these murders. Where like basically he's a doll maker. He makes these. Oh, and also the fact that like Longlegs is. I thought this was cool. I did like the fact that Longlegs' house, like the basement, was Lee's house,
Yeah.
and like that reveal that caught me off guard. I was like, oh shit, he was under your nose the whole time. I thought that element of it was cool. But he's been making these dolls that have these like little balls of demon energy inside their heads, and the demon balls possess fathers of families that these dolls are delivered to by Lee's mother, who dresses up like a nun and delivers all these dolls. And I forget exactly what it is, but like Lee's mom basically has one more that she has to deliver. Is that it?
I think. I mean, she has to keep delivering them, but like her next one is to her boss at the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
She's like she has to keep doing it, or her soul or her daughter's soul will be taken by the devil. So she's doing this for her.
Yeah. Um, but didn't her soul already get saved because the mom destroyed her doll? Wasn't that already fine?
I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah, like I felt like it got. I think that's ultimately what it is with the occult stuff. Is that I felt like it got a lot of convoluted. Like, where is he getting these balls? Like, it's the '90s. Is he like ordering them through the mail? Like, is he
Like
making?
you ask more than two questions of this movie, and it's like, hmm.
Yeah, these like little metal demon balls with like the evil energy. It felt. Yeah, like I just kind of
It's
felt like.
like, and it's like if this is like the devil's plan to like corrupt families and cause them to kill their entire family, like if I was the devil, I'd come up with a less convoluted plan than like we make an evil doll and we show up on the 14th of their birthday, and then like but it has to be a different lady. It can't be like my guy that makes the dolls. We
Exactly.
need.
Yeah, no, it just yeah, for me the ending of this movie kind of falls apart. So yeah, so the doll possesses Agent Carter, and he's acting all creepy, and like the whole family's acting weird, and at this point like that he's gonna kill his family. So the Carters, the family's possessed. Yeah, Carter kills his wife. And then Lee kills Carter to protect the little girl. Um, and then Lee kills her mother, and then they walk out of the house. Ruby remains frozen, staring at the doll. The movie kind of just ends too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's just they're in. I don't remember. Like they're in this house. I also saw the movie like a week or two ago, so it's not the most fresh in my head. But yeah,
I'm looking at the IMDb synopsis, and it mentions like, yeah, she tries to shoot the doll, but she's out of bullets, and then it cuts to the scene of him in the interrogation room, or the scene of Longlegs in the interrogation room, and he's like, "Hail Satan!"
yeah,
That's all, folks.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and it kind of ends there, and yeah, overall, just like I definitely want to watch this movie again. I think another factor too as to why we didn't have a great time is that I don't know about the theaters near you, but we try to always go to screens that have luxury loungers, like the Showtimes Online will say if they have them. And this, I thought that they did. We saw this in like the XD premium, like we saw it at a Cinemark theater. And I thought that every like premium XD format had the comfy lounger chairs, but this one didn't. And I'm spoiled now. It was just like the normal chairs.
That's horrible. I'm so sorry that happened to you, Elsie.
Yeah, no, it was the worst. And like there was a guy sitting next to me that I had to rub shoulders with, and it was just
Oh, ew.
yeah, disgusting. It's funny how much I tell people like, oh, like it's good to go to the movie theaters, but I hate packed theaters now. Like because movie theaters are so unpopular, I just love having the whole room to myself. Like when me and Joseph saw In a Violent Nature, we were literally the only two people in there, so we were just talking throughout the whole thing, and it was great.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
But oh my
sorry.
god, speaking of the armrest thing, because I went to a theater I don't normally go to for Longlegs, and that like it had some nice seats. It had like those extra long armrests, which like I don't
Hell
know if
yeah.
these are common because like I usually go to like the independent theater, so they got like our own seat situation. But like
Yeah,
those
like
extra long armrests where like both you and the person next to you can put your arm on the armrest and it isn't weird at all.
hell
And it's
yeah.
like, why haven't they implemented this everywhere? Like,
Well, because they're expensive.
that's true. But
Not
like,
on. Sorry, go
you
ahead.
know, I mean, AMC has money, don't they? I thought they cared about us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only is it expensive just in terms of like having to do major upgrades to the space, but those seats take up more space than regular theater seats, so you can sell you sell less tickets. You
It's
know,
true.
like less asses in seats. But I don't know. That's a whole. We could do a whole episode about the evolution of movie theaters and shit. Just as far as like, but they like physical media, movie theaters as a market, I feel like are just transitioning to from a general thing that everybody uses as far as like everybody used to go to the movies like, oh, like what are you gonna do with the kids this week, and oh, we're gonna go to the movies, and like it was just a regular thing. Same thing with like DVDs, Blu-rays, or whatever, like, oh, like we got to buy this new movie, we're gonna rent this new movie. But now, because of streaming, both of those things, physical media and theaters, are now more niche because things go from theaters to streaming so fucking fast now. Like literally in less than a month of something. Sorry, excuse me. Of something's initial theatrical run. Like I think you can rent Twisters right now, and it's like 2 weeks out. Um, but yeah, no, it's becoming a more luxury thing because so many more people are like, well, it's not worth it to go to the movies, or they're like monetary wise, but also like, oh, I can just be more comfortable at home, you know. Um, and yeah, so because of that, I feel like theaters have to do these more kind of luxury things where it's like, oh, we have like the big fancy seats, we'll bring your food to you, you will, you know, do all these things. And I feel like a lot of the best indie theaters, or and this is just in my area, there's a like a bar movie theater that we go to a lot. That is, it's literally like it's a bar up front, but it's a movie theater in the back where there's chairs and they serve food, and like it's a space you can hang out in, but it's also a movie theater. I feel like is the direction that um, small theaters are gonna shift towards, and then the big ones are just gonna get more luxury. That's how I feel about it.
This sounds nice, but it's also like I mean, I still haven't been to an Alamo Draft House, but I'm kind of like I don't like the idea of having to eat in the middle of the movie and then I just sit there and I've got like burger all over my hands. Like,
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan of like the whole dine-in food. Like I'm not gonna order a steak while I'm watching uh, Avengers Doomsday or whatever the fuck.
I mean, a burger during an Avengers movie, I feel like is like kind of a nice vibe, but like, what if I'm going there to see Challengers? Like, I'm not. I don't know. I'm not. Well, maybe I could eat
That's
churros
true.
during Challengers or
I don't know.
something, but like, you know,
We just we go to the dollar store beforehand and get all our candy.
that's the real strat.
Sneak it in. That's the thing, and sodas and shit. Fucking all that. Like I think I snuck in under my shirt like a family size bag of Doritos.
What's your go-to movie snack?
Go to movie snack.
Yeah.
It changes per genre.
Ooh.
I don't think I've told you this. Action movie, something dumb. I just want like something like chocolatey, like cookie dough bites or goobers. Like I mentioned, Twister. Me and Courtney saw Twisters 2 days ago, and I was goobering it up. Um, and then if it's like a horror movie, like milk duds or basically any candy that takes a little bit longer to eat. You know, like or it's like because there's a lot of tension going on. Like I can bite and I can really grind into the milk dud and like take my tension out on that. Um, and then sci-fi movies, it's always Sour Patch Kids or Sour Patch Watermelon. Because like I don't know, like when I think sci-fi, I think of more like fruity tastes and stuff.
Yeah,
Like
it's a flavor of the future. Like, wow, in the past they never could have gotten this kind of sour patch flavor. You
exactly,
know?
it's like astronaut food, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it changes on the genre, and then I don't know, popcorn's kind of fallen by the wayside. I used to be such a popcorn guy, but now I like rarely have popcorn.
Well, it's
Um,
hard to sneak in. That's the thing.
That's true. Also, like me and Courtney, usually we have a pattern of like when we go to the movies, we usually like get dinner before or after. We'll just like go to Chili's or something. So I'm already like pretty full of like food beforehand.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, what about you? What's your go-to movie snack?
So I don't get movie snacks super often because I'm a cheapskate.
Mhm.
But what I usually go for when I do is like I like to get, just a nice soda. The Coolidge Corner has a couple of like specialty sodas like cream soda and like the fancy stuff. So I like to indulge in one of those every once in a while because I usually bring a water bottle, but I like to, if I want a fun drink, it's nice to stay hydrated. And like I do like popcorn when I go for a movie snack, but the thing is like you said, like I'll have a meal
Hmm.
before or after the movie, so I don't have a huge appetite for it, so it's kind of hard to finagle that. Usually what
Oh,
happens is like I'll be with someone else and they'll be like, "You want to split a popcorn?" I'll be like, "Fuck yes, I want to split a popcorn."
yeah. Back in the day, I used to be able to down a large popcorn by myself, but now just thinking about that gives me a stomach ache.
I used
Yeah.
to have I don't take popcorn that often, but like I had a rule of thumb that was like if I buy a bag of popcorn and I haven't finished it by the end of the movie, then it's a good movie. But if I do
Hmm.
finish it, then it was a bad movie because I'm like I need to distract myself with this popcorn.
I see. I see. I see.
I remember going to see Jurassic World 2 and I finished that whole bag.
Hmm. When when I saw A Quiet Place Day one, I barely ate any of my snacks because those movies are impossible to fucking like go into paper or plastic bags while you're watching because you're trying to stay quiet as possible.
That's a tough one. Yeah, I try to
Yeah,
go for the soda slurp, but it's just gonna kill the vibe.
exactly. It's just gonna kill everyone because the monsters are gonna come through
Yeah.
the screen. But yeah, no. So wrapping up with Longlegs. Uh, yeah, no. There are definitely some good atmospheric moments in there for sure, but yeah, no. So and a last kind of thing. I guess I have nothing but complaints. There is one more complaint I have about this movie that is like a for me a big deal. There have been a lot of great like small period piece movies that like showcase um like time periods that haven't been covered a whole lot before necessarily in really interesting ways. Like Love Lies Bleeding is what I'm thinking of. I saw The TV Glow are both movies that like they're similar budget range movies by these like smaller studios that do portray the era very well. I forgot this fucking movie was in the 90s like so many times.
You didn't see that giant portrait of Bill Clinton?
I
That
saw the
didn't
giant
ground you in
I,
the atmosphere of the
that dude could
90s?
just be a big Bill Clinton fan, you know.
That's true.
uh, but like I don't know, just down to like I feel like down to like the cars even like I didn't feel like it didn't feel like there were 90s cars. There was nothing about like I'm looking at clothing, cars. There isn't any like diegetic music happening. I don't see like them watching 90s movies on TV and stuff. Like there's not they don't do a lot in this movie to give me a good sense of setting is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
um like we're just kind of like Midwest nowhere the environment is not interesting to me is what I think I'm trying to say.
I mean, I kind of enjoy that though. I kind of like that it feels like it's kind of out of time because, like, you mentioned It Follows earlier. I feel like part of the atmosphere of that movie is that it doesn't feel tied to a specific time
Hmm.
period, and that kind of adds to the ominousness of it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
that
enjoyed it here.
yeah. Well, It Follows is kind of the opposite of what I'm saying in that like the reason why It Follows seems like it's out of time is because they have a spread of shit coming from everywhere. Like it's 80s cars, but it's like 50s TVs, but it's futuristic cell phones, but it's modern clothes and It Follows. You know, like the cell phones in those movies are like are fucking holographic cell phones and shit. Um and because they have this massive spread of visual influences, like it can feel like it's nowhere. Whereas like this movie, for me, it just looked boring. Like everything was just gray and boxy. Like I didn't really feel like a sense of place. Even Lee's house felt super boring. And I usually love like cabin type houses and just I don't know. Nothing visually popped for me in this movie.
Yeah, it was the inverse for me. I feel like that kind of liminal vibe was like one of the strengths of the movie in terms
Hmm.
of atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't like this movie too much, but like its strengths in terms of like delivering scares made me more interested in the director's other stuff because I have a friend that's like a pretty big fan of his other stuff. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should give him some more chances.
Yeah, Osgood Perkins, Gretel and Hansel. I heard good things about Gretel and Hansel. Gretel and Hansel.
And they're a big fan. I think the Black Coat's daughter.
Like that's an honor. It's got a cool poster. Yeah. But yeah, no, I might check out the director's other work. But yeah, overall it was interesting. Let's go to the prop question. Then we'll wrap up. This one might be tough. It doesn't just have to be a prop from Longlegs or a prop from Silence of the Lambs. You can pick whatever you want. Longlegs, I feel like it's tougher because there isn't many physical things.
I mean, you could get an orb. I feel like the orb would be fun.
The orb ball, that could be fun, but I'd be worried it's gonna possess me, make me kill people.
Just don't drop it, I guess. Don't break it.
Well, no, breaking it is what makes the demons go away.
Oh.
I don't want to break it, or at least that's how I interpreted it.
I feel like, I don't know, because she smashed open that ball, the doll, and I guess that caused Lee Harker to pass out. So I just assumed, I'd be psychically connected to this ball, and then if I broke it, I would die, or something.
Maybe. So you choose the demon ball?
Yeah, just like a nice ball. I do fushigi ball tricks with it.
That's cool. I want Longlegs's his white suit he has when he gets picked up. Like, he's looking fly there, not gonna lie.
He has that shit on.
Like, it's kind of giving televangelist vibes, but it's still a good looking suit. Yeah, I choose.
Also, at the end of the movie that he's like, I'm gonna go cut the cake, and I was like, damn, I could go for some cake. So maybe also the cake.
Indeed. Always cake. Yeah. I'd say that about wraps it up, Deep T. People at home, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Midnight Movie Gang. It's currently 8:20 p.m. Night Movie Gang. Thanks for hanging out with us. Yeah, I think this is the first time we've talked about a movie that I actively disliked. Usually I say something right here like you can check out this movie here, like it's gonna be on streaming, but I wasn't. If you want to check it out, if you enjoyed it, lovely, great, good for you. I didn't.
We had a productive discussion about it. I feel like in terms of movies, I wasn't too hot on. Like, I don't mind that this movie's doing well. Like, I don't think it's emblematic of a a bad trend in the movie.
Yeah,
movie
no.
genre. Like, it's a weird offbeat horror movie. It's getting views. That's a nice thing, at least.
I like movies like this. I just didn't like this particular one, and I would agree.
Exactly.
I'm also glad that movies like this are doing well, because I think, in terms of like the nostalgia kind of horror suspense thing, like I fucking love that, and there is a big movement. Like Maxine, I feel like falls into this wave as well, and I fucking loved Maxine. I definitely want to do a Ty West trilogy episode for sure. I think that could be fun. Yeah, this is Midnight Movie Gang. You can follow us on Instagram at Midnight Movie Gang. Same thing on TikTok. We're at Midnight Movie Gang podcast on YouTube, which we're close to 100 subscribers, so go there now. Oh, probably already going to be at once you hear this. Same thing on Patreon at Midnight Movie Gang, $5 a month. Get access to new episodes 2 days early and monthly commentary tracks. Today, actually, our second monthly commentary track came out. Me and Joseph did a commentary track for Cowboys and Aliens. Jon Favreau's 2011 sci-fi movie. It was a lot of fun.
Magnum opus.
Exactly, like his best movie, Iron What. Yeah, please go check that out. And thank you for listening. Deepti, do you want to talk about your other podcast? Do you want to promote that, or?
Oh yeah, we're real roomies on Spotify. I mean, you can look us up. I'm not sure.
Real like a film reel.
Yeah, and the roomies like roommates.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure if we show up in search, but I mean, give it a try. We might be
I just
there.
searched it.
Oh, hey.
Oh, I'm also following you guys already, so that might be part of it.
Probably helps.
You guys don't... I'm going to rate you guys right now. Where do I find it?
Oh, shuck.
Oh, I can only do it on my phone. I'll rate you guys on my phone when I get off. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, folks. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.
So, here we go. Childish frustrations and complexes which the police are searching for James Todd, believed to be the lover of Miss Williams, and her partner in the horrible murder of Walter. Where's everybody that I'm here to hold on? Oh, please tell me where this going. Please tell me. Sorry, I don't know. How long could I got in here? 3 tickets to Albany on 6 o'clock train tonight. What do you think?